You're listening to the Lux Life Discovered podcast, where we talk with people who are living a lifestyle that reflects their passion, because we believe everyone should be living their best life, their Lux Life. The show is hosted by Rick Steiner with Steiner Event Group, a premier national event planning company, and co-hosted by Shannon Richmond, the Vice President of the Panama City Beach Chamber of Commerce. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notifications of future episodes. The show is produced by 30A Media and is broadcast on your favorite podcast outlets, as well as YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TVs, and other major brand smart TVs.
Hello, I'm Rick Steiner. Welcome to Lux Life Discovered. We're back to kick off the new year with our men's style segment with Todd Anthony Tyler. So Todd, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Rick. It's definitely always a pleasure to be on.
Oh, it's always good to talk with you. It seems like, we do this segment quarterly, and it's here before we know it each time. It's like time has flown by this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I always feel that way. I guess a number of things that are going on, but when you're talking about style trends, it seems like, yep, it's another season. Yep, it's another season. But it's definitely
Right.
interesting to see where the changes are and where the developments are.
That's true, yeah. So for 2025, before we get into 2026, have there been any trends in 2025 that have surprised you?
Well, we kind of spoke about this a few times on other occasions. When you're trying to look at men's fashion as a whole, it's always interesting in how you make that work for everyone. And obviously that's not possible. So what you find that with the more fashion-driven ideas and concepts, that might not be as classic an idea of how to dress as a man. So that tends to resonate a little bit more with a youthful man or a younger age group. So I think just in general, I always find it difficult. Maybe a few years back in the first place, I think they kind of threw all the traditional style ideas, rules of sorts out the window.
Right.
And then we were just going with you be you. You wear what you think works for you. I like that, but then it definitely makes it a challenge when you're trying to suggest what's a trend, what's not a trend, and what looks good on you, what doesn't look good on you. So in 2025, for me personally, for example, I like to have a little bit more of a fitted suit. I think it looks good. I think it doesn't look sloppy. I think it looks put together. I never really liked the super tight suits that we were looking at a few years back, especially on the legs. I didn't think that ever looked great. I was never a fan of the no socks, for example, but I was also into having a fitted suit. I thought that was a good direction to be in. And I still suggest that's probably a good direction for most men. But when you're looking fashion forward, absolutely 2025, and we see it again in 2026, the suit's moving more and more to a loose fit and a more kind of casual look, I guess you would say. So that was a little bit of a surprise that we went from like super tight fit to a fitted fit, and now we're just going almost completely in the other direction with a really loose looking fit for suiting up in particular. But then I think on other points for casual, everything was big and chunky and oversized. That works for some people.
That the tight legs, like you said, with no socks, and the pants look like they're about 3 inches too short.
Yeah.
How did that trend ever start?
I'm going to hedge a bet that it was a bit of a European direction on it,
Okay.
but with the style of the shoes and whatnot. I'm also going to hedge some bets on that it was a warmer climate when we were talking about, say, some northern countries for sure. But I don't know, that's the way it goes with trends in general, right? People are looking to be different. People are looking to change things up. Probably let's not fool ourselves. The fashion industry is always looking at ways to reinvent itself as a market to continue to sell the idea of fashion and new looks. So there's all factors there. But yeah, absolutely. The skinny pant, that was very particular to I think particular people where that might have worked, if it worked at all.
Right. I was gonna say it's like with every other fashion segment that comes along or style that comes along, there are certain people in that can pull it off, but it's not for everybody. And most people that can't wear it try to wear it, and they shouldn't. It seems.
Yeah, and I think that's part of being with this, some of the style consulting that I do. There is trends, and I love to talk about the trends. I like to look at what's happening from season to season. I love to look at what's happening on the runways, very creative, what designers are doing, what brands are doing. But yeah, then when you start talking about the individual person, we have to look at, okay, what can we incorporate into your current wardrobe that's on trend for this season, but really truly works with you. I think that's really the factor for all people when they look at, how to dress for the trend or dress more fashionable, not look dated, but also look right for them.
Right. So do you think, I know you've already said for 2026, looking for a looser fit. What else do you see for 2026 that might be surprising?
Well, it's sort of on the contrary of that looser fit. You're also seeing with some of the suit brands, they're bringing back kind of a 90s look with the big shoulders. So it went way away for a period of time on those boxy kind of football padded shoulder look almost.
And that's coming back?
And it's coming back. You're seeing that. You saw that on the runway for 2026 with some of the men's brands. Sorry. Yes. Sorry, guys. You can come in. What is the problem? Yeah, I mentioned to you that I'm going to be doing this right now. I mean, you somehow have to stay there and come back in 30 minutes. Okay? Okay, thank you. Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, coming back to those big boxy shoulders, looks, they're padded. They'd moved away from that for a while. There was some people that were into a vintage look and were still wearing it, but if you were wearing those boxy shoulders past couple of years, you're definitely going to look dated in your suit and look like you just pulled that one out of your closet from 1992.
Right.
But that's come back around. A really interesting thing. Justice. Thank you.
Trying to steal some camera time?
Yeah. I thought he got the concept that Dad's busy right now, but sorry about that, guys. Okay, so I'll just give it a cut here. Okay. So then another really interesting thing that we're looking at, and that's why I have this look here, big and bold colors come back. So what I'm wearing actually sort of represents a little bit of a 2025 trend, more muted colors. And I'll explain what my examples are here and what I'm talking about. But this look here, I think, is a great overall example of a key style and trend look for 2026 spring and summer. Lots of color coming back and patterns, and how people wear that and deal with that and how that works for them, again, is a question for them. But absolutely, we're looking at more color and patterns, especially fashion forward type suits and shirts. Here, I have toned it down a bit to be sort of, say, let's call it your everyman, as we have a nice bright colored jacket and still a brightly colored shirt. I think you can pick it up to see also we have a little bit of pattern and graphic design with the pocket square, so that pops out a little bit. It's a linen jacket, which is also a big trend for 2026, because what we're looking at is, in particular with suits, but across the board, I think it's a little bit of recognizing that things are getting warmer in our summer months currently. Perhaps that global warming is actually happening. And so we're seeing a lot of fabrics going to seersucker, linen, a lot of lighter cotton fabrics, so that it's more wearable and when you're wearing it in a hot conditions, much more comfortable.
Right.
So that's what you're seeing here with this. Also the open collar, that's a little bit of something we're seeing in spring, summer on the slight casual direction, but that's sort of resort style open collar. That's something we're seeing for 2026 spring, summer for sure.
Okay. And that just kind of depends on what location you're in, where you're going, what the event is, that type thing. So
oh,
go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. The key point there, lots of color in 2026 with also graphic designs or designs on the suits or on clothing is what you're going to see. Now, contrasted to that, though, is partially why I wore this, is as we know, a lot of color, maybe not for everyone. Definitely graphic designs or bright, bold designs, not necessarily for everyone. So I would say on a more, say, mature, if you want to even say sophisticated look, you're still looking at sages, stone colors, sand. Those kind of colors still work in spring, summer 2026. What you then are doing, sort of what I have here and why I wore this tie, is it's like a knit tie, a little bit of pattern in the shirt. This is also a linen jacket. So we're mixing in the textures, which I find in 2026 has really been huge, something I've always loved and something I always spoke about, but I'm seeing more with the fashion trends. What is actually polishing off the look is not necessarily the cut or color as much as taking consideration for the texture.
Okay, so the ones that can afford to have the stylist to help them out with that, I mean, that's where you guys come in and take care of that for them. For those who can't or may not have easy access to a stylist, what's a good rule of thumb or a good something good to follow for like mixing fabrics?
That's a good
Without,
question.
you know what I'm saying, without it going like where it looks like, wow, you just pulled everything off the shelf racks and put it on.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's why you might be familiar with this interior designer, Philip Stark. Uh, that's sort of like how he designs things. Some people try to pull it off, and it's not like he just pulled everything that he had in the back room and put it on the wall or put it around the room. It's actually pretty well thought off to make that all work. So yeah, what we're looking at, I would say, is generally speaking, textures. So like you're talking about silk, cotton, the weave of the fabric that you're using, paired then with some chunkiness. So big and small textures. So you're layering that together. So here, for example, there's a small weave in the jacket with the linen. I have a little bit more of a chunkier textured tie. And then I have a silk pocket square just to kind of give that little bit of pop of lightness. And then, of course, my shirt has that small texture and pattern, which is sort of representing still a big interest in patterns in 2026, not necessarily just a typical white shirt. So then it's obviously there, it's all about layering. So it's some people have a little bit more of an eye for it naturally than others, absolutely. But even for myself, what I do is I take it out, I lay it on the bed, and I start with a foundation. Okay, I'm going to wear this jacket. Now I'm looking at this jacket. What color am I dealing with? What textures am I looking at? All right, so now I'm going to put my shirt in there. Am I going to go with a patterned shirt or a straight, a solid color or no color? These days I tend to go to color or a pattern. So then I layer that in underneath the shirt, laying that down there on the bed. Then I go in, am I doing a tie with this? Oh, maybe the occasion doesn't call for a tie, so I'm not going to do the tie. I'll just do something like a little bit of an open collar. Typically, I like to go to ties. It's just my thing. So then I go in and I start to layer in ties, looking absolutely at the texture of the tie, but then you're talking about colors. And you want usually complementary colors, not necessarily matching colors, but complementary colors to what you're wearing. And then you layer those in. So it's like a layering process, which then I always just finish off typically with a pocket square. I think some people might think pocket square is a little more highbrow, maybe a little more like you're going to something that's almost black tie in a sense. But I think you can wear a pocket square, especially if you have a little bit of fun with it, like with some polka dots or something. You can always put in a pocket square. I think it just gives it a little bit of a polish, a little bit of a finish, a little bit more thought out sort of look.
That makes sense. So what is there like a definite no that comes to mind when like selecting all of your wardrobe?
Well, I always sort of default, I suppose, to the same thing, is that These days, I don't think there's really a no. I mean, you can walk down the streets of any major city and you might think personally a no.
Right.
But on the fashion scene, it's like, well, yeah, I guess that's a yes. Like, for example, we saw this last spring and it's still happening right now. Sheer and transparent shirts and looks are still a trend, like mesh or sheer, tank tops and whatnot. I think there's a very particular fashion forward crowd that's probably wearing that. Personally, I wouldn't really be choosing that to wear for any other reason. That I just feel like it doesn't work for me. But that's definitely a fashion forward trend that's happening and exists. It may just, again, not be for you. So that's something that we're going to say, yeah, maybe Rick, I don't know if you want to wear the mesh thing.
If I ever get a message from you, it's like, what were you thinking? I'll know, well, I shouldn't have worn that. So,
yeah.
No.
Well, I definitely know my wife doesn't like me in a mesh tank either. So
that's right. And like we said, there are some people that can pull it off, but it all depends on the environment, the situation, that type thing. Goodness, but
absolutely.
yeah.
But and I think it's also there, what we're saying fashion wise. Are we going, so a person, I tend to go a little bit more towards a classic direction, implementing again things like the bold colors, but I tend to go a little bit more of a classic direction. I just feel that works for me. I feel comfortable with that. I feel good with that. Sometimes I explore more fashion forward things, but fashion forward things tend to be very fashion forward, very almost right off the runway. And then there's probably a select few that really works.
We don't, in the past, I've seen you in like suits that are bright colors that are really, really bright, but you still kind of take those and make them in the more reserved look, if that makes sense. Because the colors is the main, I mean, that's what stands out the most, but you still have the same style. And so, but you're able to pull it off with the bright colors and make it completely different.
Yeah, so I think that's again where I'm mixing what's a trend, what I just straight out feel like I'd like to wear, and then kind of maintaining those cleaner lines and looks, not almost you say in a slight minimalist direction, but still layering in those textures and patterns for sure. But yeah, using that, for example, as you are aware, I really like my pink suit and my yellow suit, and I break those out on occasion. And I do feel good wearing those, and I like to style those up. But say right now, a pink suit, definitely a hot color, a big, bold color for sure. Then, but if you're going to be very fashion forward with 2026, you're going to be looking at a pink suit that's more relaxed fit, maybe the bigger shoulders, very draped pants. Then you're going to have a patterned, very bold patterned shirt, and probably a bold, wide tie going with it, because that's kind of the current direction with the trend. I would not personally think when I'm going out or feel like that's captures how I think and feel. So I would just, so then I'd have a slimmer tie. I would still have probably a bold pattern shirt, but a fitted shirt. I would have a more fitted jacket. It just aligns a little bit more with myself, which I think every person makes those sort of decisions when they're deciding what trends to incorporate and which ones not to.
And then the other thing that comes to mind while we're talking about this, confidence and being comfortable in what you're wearing says it all.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's why, again, when I work with people on wanting to update their wardrobe, or they just simply want to dress a little bit more fashion forward, maybe they have a new job, new love in their life, something where they want to change things up. That's what we're looking at, an overall picture. We're not just walking in and go, oh, this is super trendy. Oh, this is super trendy. Or this is what this season is. We're looking at the overall picture, what their job is, where they are in life, what they feel comfortable with. Because like you said, ultimately, I think for men and women, of course, but we're talking about men's fashion here. When men dress up, it's about a confidence level. You feel confident, you feel good, you feel sociable, you feel right in your own skin kind of thing because of how you're dressed. And I think that's an important aspect that we sometimes minimize, thinking, oh, that's not really that important. But I think it is actually important, especially in a workplace or social occasions. I think you want to feel good. You want to feel confident, and what you're wearing does help you with that.
Right. And we've all seen people at different events and occasions where they've tried to dress according to the trend, and you can tell they're constantly tugging or they're uncomfortable, and it shows, and it doesn't reflect who they are. And so it makes it where they stand out more, but not for the right reason.
Yes, yeah. I mean, if they're not feeling comfortable, absolutely. That's a bit of, you would say, a bit of a problem. And that how they've been styled or styled themselves on that occasion is definitely not being useful or helpful for them.
Right.
Another thing, actually interesting, though, if I can just throw in quick, I just even know for my own self how people first meet you. So a lot of times when I've gone to a meeting, I'm dressed a little bit more formal, like with a tie and a jacket and a suit or something. And I already see how people interact with me, how people speak to you. Already walking into a room, the position, if we want to say that's correct or not, but the position they seem to hold you at because of the way you're dressed. And then I've met these very same people in a more casual experience where I'm wearing a tank top and a backwards baseball cap, and they don't even recognize me. I go up to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And they have no idea who I am. So my point is just like how you're dressed is impactful and how people perceive you.
Right. Good or bad.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Like one, I'm getting sort of say innate respect of how I'm dressed. The other one is like, who's this kid with the best backward baseball cap? So it's kind of interesting how that works.
But that is so true. That first impression, and no matter what you do after that, sometimes it's hard to get that first impression to change, or to have that mindset to think, okay, he doesn't always look as good as I thought he did. Or sometimes you're like, I don't think he ever looked, professional, that type thing. So it's important.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because in that example I gave, if I would have met that individual the first time with the tank top and backwards baseball cap, the next time I met them at a meeting where I walked in suited up, they're not going to equate the same guy. Like, oh, now he's suited up, but I see the kid in the cap. Right. So it is definitely impactful, your first impressions, again, like it or not. So that's why considering what you're wearing and you feeling confident in it, whether it's on trend or not, is a very important aspect.
And isn't it odd that, like, if we see somebody and they make a good first impression, and then we see them, like you're talking about, seeing you in, say, the tank top and the backward hat, that doesn't have a negative effect as much as like that bad first impression, and then they're dressed later like you think they should be, but then you always think, yeah, that's just for today. That's not the way they are. Whether it's right or wrong, but it stays with you.
Yes, absolutely. That first image and that first impression just lingers. That's whether it's in the workplace or meeting new friends or meeting new loves in your life. That's the first impression. And I think most women in particular, if we go in that direction at all, will tell you, yeah, that's a big either attraction or non-attraction, how you first met a person and how they were dressed. Classically, we always speak about men don't really consider their footwear, but women are always looking at that. Those are big impressions that linger and maybe almost, I mean, it sounds a bit dramatic, but almost change the course of life, which way things go because of how people perceived you or met you.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about this too. So we get the suit on, everything looks great. We have the right textures, the right colors, the right fit. Footwear. How do we make sure we don't blow it with the footwear? Because like you said, people look, and if you've got the wrong shoes or the style shoes with what you're wearing, it can discredit the whole look, regardless of how sharp it may be.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And that's one, definitely, again, personally, I always lean towards a classic look. I think the prime thing we're really looking at is honestly, outside of looking at style, shape, color, those are all considerations, of course. What I see in a lot of men is just they don't look at their shoes at all. Like the state of the shoes, that they're worn, that they have holes in it, that they're super dirty, not even a little bit of a wipe or a polish. I think that is what, you're doing really well here, and then you come down there and you go, what's going on down there? And I think, again, not to focus on everything dressing up how women perceive you, but definitely, again, women see that and they go, okay, he was doing okay until he got there. So
Right.
that's something you really need to consider. So once again, going in a classic direction, a nice Oxford or, a classic shoe, solid. If you don't like leather, there's other options, but say a solid leather shoe, you can't go wrong as long as we're talking about a well-kept, clean, your laces tied up level even shoe. But that said, with 2026 trends, there is a bit of a push in the fashion forward, which we've seen in the past, of course, but in the fashion forward direction of really then mixing up the footwear. The running shoes, the sandals, everything that's not classic in the direction. And then if you look at footwear for 2026 as well, tends to be chunky, lots of colors, colored laces. So I think you're going to see, say, more fashion forward people maybe have a slightly, if they're super fashion forward, we already know they're going to have like a slouchy look, perhaps those big shoulders again, bold colors, bold patterns. And then we're going to go down to the shoes and we're going to see like bright pink laces with a very graphic colored shoe. That's very fashion forward. If we're just talking about getting a little bit current, I think there's a big move again on considering textures, which I think was overlooked in the past. So more weaved tops to the shoes, baroque or design to the shoe, texture to the shoe. I think that's one of the bigger trends that we can look at in a slightly more classic direction to make sure we have a nice finish to the whole look.
Right. And make sure the shoes match the overall look of what you're wearing, because you don't want to get to the shoes and then look like you didn't give it any thought.
Yeah, like I stated, I think like like the most barrier, entry level to things is just making sure you have like a clean pair of shoes in the first place, because we really do see that a lot, because just they have like no consideration to the shoes. They're wearing the same shoes for the past 10 years that the heels worn, they're done. And they're still throwing it on with a really, maybe even in some cases I've seen quite expensive suit. And you're just wondering, you didn't spend a few $100s on the shoes. So
Right,
I think it's worth spending a few bucks on getting some nicer shoes.
Well, it is an area that a lot of people overlook completely.
Yes, yeah, I think. Again, you mentioned yourself, and I think that's something I even try to think of when I'm advising people. Listen, things can be expensive. Fashion and changing up your wardrobe, especially seasonally, can be expensive. So that's maybe not for everyone. Everyone doesn't maybe have those financial resources to do so. And so you have to consider that. And that's why I think shoes keep getting pushed to next year, to next year, to next year.
Yeah.
But of course, probably unlike most of your clothing or suits, they're worn almost daily. So they get a lot of use, a lot of wear. So yeah, I think it almost at least yearly, but bi-yearly, sort of take a look at your shoes and consider like maybe these ones are done and we need to get replacements on that.
But in between those periods, keep them clean.
Yeah, and just really, I just seen that so often. I know it could be challenging, but just that little bit of detail can be simplified by just having clean, nicely put together shoes. After that, we start to look at what's on trend, what kind of ways you can elevate your current footwear, and if you want to be super fashion forward and get yourself some hot pink laces.
All right. Well, good deal. Well, I look forward to the next quarter when we're back together and we can kind of see where we hit the mark, miss the mark, or what the current trend is and what we think about it. So,
all right, absolutely. I think on the next one we can fill out a few more ideas that are happening, more specific even for summertime. And looking forward to talking about that.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming on and help us kick off 2026. And your information is on the screen. So if you want to reach out to Todd with any questions, he's 2 Instagram accounts and his website, and he can definitely help you with any questions you may have. So Todd, thanks again for being with us. It's always a pleasure, man.
All right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Rick.
All right. And that concludes our episode of Lux Life Discovered. We will see you soon.
Check out Lux Life Discovered on Facebook and Instagram and on 30a.tv. See you next time on Lux Life Discovered.